Can she sit here and the bike? Controllers. Ah, police?
Есть. По-русски знаешь?
Ah,
Есть. Ну, чуть-чуть осталось.
okay. Rahmat.
The plan was simple. Fly to Dushanbe, build the bikes, and cycle the two highest international highways in the world. This would bring us to Pakistan, where we hope to trek among some of the world's highest mountains and longest glaciers. All the part in the middle? Well, that would be the adventure.
Dushanbe, 1er mai 2019. Ça y est, on est enfin au point de départ de notre voyage à vélo. On finit nos derniers préparatifs avant le grand départ. Cette ville me rappelle la Russie, avec ses bus, ses rues, ses bâtiments et cette architecture qui rappelle l'époque de l'URSS. D'une autre part, l'influence du Moyen-Orient lui donne sa propre identité et à partir d'aujourd'hui, nous allons découvrir ce pays et cette culture formée par l'unique mélange de l'islam et de l'ex-URSS.
That first day was filled with the joy of finally being on the road after months of planning, and it couldn't have ended any better. After stopping in a tiny village for food and directions to a hotel, we were invited to stay with a family. This will be the first of many, but will always remain the most special. It was filled with warmth and kindness and helped us fall in love with the Tajik people and with their culture.
Du lait salé, du beurre et du pain. Claire, tu es prête pour une journée de vélo avec ça?
That breakfast was just as disgusting as it sounds, but it gave us so much energy and was given with so much kindness that we grew to tolerate it at least. That was what struck us the most in Tajikistan, the kindness of people. In spite of having little themselves, we were invited several times a day to eat a meal, drink a tea, or even sleep the night. I remember during one particularly tough section, when everything was breaking on the bikes, we were so demoralised. A passing truck just rolled down its window and handed Antoine a bunch of apples. And it was the little moments like that which kept us going. So we stopped to get some water. And I found my new friend. Jump on the bike.
Deuxième jour, qu'est-ce que t'en penses, Claire?
Bah ouais, c'est super, hein.
C'est joli, mais c'était difficile. Premier jour de chemin en montée.
Ouais, c'est vrai. Un peu hors piste aujourd'hui, c'était pas super, mais on est arrivé.
Ouais. Du coup, demain, ça continue. Alors, Claire, qu'est-ce que tu nous fais à manger ce soir?
Bah, c'est pas grand-chose. On a de riz, des poivrons, des petits pois avec des herbes. Mais après, on a les rhubarbes sauvages. On va essayer de le mettre avec le sucre et on verra. On verra ce que ça donne.
The Pamir Highway is part of the old Silk Road trading network. Its perilous mountain roads traverse valleys incised by deep river canyons. Clinging to the sides of these are tiny hamlets of civilization where lush green ribbons of cultivation break up the otherwise barren landscape.
High above lie the Pamirs themselves, the lush, green, high-altitude pastures where herders lead their livestock in semi-nomadic battles to survive the ravages of 8 months of bitter winter.
Tous les jours, nous faisions de nouvelles rencontres. Nous découvrions de nouveaux paysages, mais aussi de nouvelles galères. La fatigue commençait à se faire ressentir. On n'avait pas voulu chercher trop d'infos ou d'images sur la route. On préfère découvrir et se faire son avis en voyageant. Ce qui est sûr, c'est qu'on ne s'attendait pas à une route autant défoncée.
Ça va Claire, les nouveaux réglages? And you, what's your name? Shahram. My name is Antoine. We are going to Karakoram. Hello.
La vie le long de la Pamir Highway semble idyllique, au rythme de la nature. Les femmes bavardent en remplissant des seaux d'eau à la fontaine du village. Les hommes travaillent dans les champs et les enfants jouent tous ensemble. Mais derrière tous ces sourires qui nous accueillent, se cache un passé difficile. La région autonome du Haut-Badakhshan a failli mourir de faim après le retrait de l'URSS. Sous la domination soviétique, l'agriculture et l'industrie de la région avaient été abandonnées en faveur de l'armée soviétique. Les besoins essentiels avaient été satisfaits par les importations russes. Lorsque l'URSS s'est effondrée, elle a laissé la région parsemée de mines et peu d'autres choses. Grâce à l'intervention étrangère sous forme de programmes agricoles et hydroélectriques, la région produit désormais plus de 80% de ses besoins alimentaires de base, contre 15% auparavant. Mais la plupart de la population survit encore, avec moins de $200 par an.
Push ourselves physically and mentally, to discover and reach our limits and have to keep going anyway, to be rewarded with incredible views and to spend our days alone with the raw beauty of Mother Nature. That is why we came here.
On est arrivé hier au bord du Pange, après un col et une descente de 2000 mètres de dénivelé. Cette rivière sépare le Tadjikistan et l'Afghanistan. Afghanistan, ce nom qui fait peur, ce pays déchiré par la guerre, nous allons le longer pendant 3 jours.
Friends. Yes.
Pédaler ici était un des moments les plus attendus de notre voyage. L'Afghanistan ressemblait au Tadjikistan, mais avec son propre style. Les maisons étaient entourées de cultures plus verdoyantes les unes que les autres. Les champs étaient toujours plus grands côté afghan, rythmés par les arbres, les maisons et les murs de pierre. La plupart des maisons n'avaient pas de fenêtres, très rarement l'électricité avec un panneau solaire. On a eu envie plus d'une fois de traverser cette rivière pour aller découvrir la vie de l'autre côté. Elle semblait bien plus simple et en harmonie parfaite avec la nature. Pendant nos pauses, on a pu observer de nombreux moments de vie comme celui-là. Cette famille pêchait, toutes les générations ensemble, avec une simple branche en guise de canne à pêche.
Those 240 kilometres separating Karakoram and Korog were difficult, both physically and mentally. Each village and military checkpoint was a brief reprieve as the people seemed to try their best to lift our spirits. Out with this, however, even the awe and beauty of nearby Afghanistan began to pale in comparison to the unrelenting undulations, the searing heat and the broken roads. The steep walls of the valley became not only monotonous but restrictive, as they severely limited our options for camping. This resulted in long days in the saddle and often reaching the outskirts of villages after dark.
What's your name?
My name is Tosun.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Tajikistan.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
The long days enforced by the valley walls meant we arrived in Korog earlier than expected. Our reward for this effort was that we had arrived in time for the once-weekly Afghan market. Each week, traders cross a nearby suspension bridge to bring their wares to their comparatively wealthy neighbours. After so long following their border, it was wonderful to be able to meet and interact with the Afghan people, many of whom were fluent in English and had as many questions for us as we had for them. The eastern section of the Pamir highway is another beast entirely. If the western section is sparsely populated, then beyond Korog it becomes desolate. In late spring, snow still covers the high altitude pastures, and many of the lakes remain frozen or buried beneath the snow. The focus here turns to the natural world.
Salam.
When we did reach the villages, they were just tiny collections of very basic huts. Finding the local shop, if there was one, involved a lot of effort, mime and often lengthy searches for the person with the key. Once inside, our choices were limited to the same 5 or 6 essential items. Our meals became monotonous, with only a limited way to vary these same staple ingredients. One thing that remained constant from west to east, however, was the openness and kindness of all the people we met. It was an important thing in an otherwise lonely environment.
Pour la première fois, on va passer la barre des 4000 mètres. On commence à manquer de souffle. Le plus dur, c'est le soir, la nuit et le matin. Dès que le soleil disparaît, les températures chutent, on a vraiment froid et il y a tout qui gèle. Quelle idée de camper ici au printemps.
Premier jour à plus de 4000 mètres. Il fait beau. La route est sèche. En bon état. L'altitude se fait ressentir, c'est vraiment dur. So, origin to site above 4,200 meters.
We got to breathe. And the road's good.
Lost in the snow-capped mountain plains, it was easy to feel completely alone in the world. Luckily, the Chinese trucks that still frequent this otherwise abandoned trading route were happy to shake us out of this illusion on a fairly regular basis. As we climbed higher, the surroundings got more and more beautiful with each passing day. That beauty came at a price though. Not content with our other challenges, Mother Nature revealed a new trick. After lunch each day, a headwind would begin. Rushing towards us, thwarting our efforts to gain as much height as possible before setting camp. The physical and mental effort of battling these winds brought us to breaking points on more than one occasion.
Ce soir-là, on était bien, on était au chaud. Pour arriver au petit village de Boulomkoul, on avait emprunté une piste de sable. Pour la première fois, on découvrait le sable, sûrement la pire chose avec un vélo de 50 kg.
Welcome to Tajikistan.
On avait trouvé sur la carte cette route secondaire. On nous avait averti à propos de ce chemin et à la fois encouragé d'y aller pour ces paysages. C'était un coup de poker. On était à l'endroit le plus froid du Tadjikistan. Il fallait que la météo soit bonne et on n'avait aucun moyen de le savoir. On a joué et on a gagné. Il a encore fait beau. Ce jour-là, c'était mon anniversaire. La nature nous a montré ses plus belles couleurs, créant des contrastes indescriptibles. C'est un de nos meilleurs souvenirs de notre voyage.
Aujourd'hui, on est le 17 mai et on est sous la neige. Ouh, ça caille.
Alisher was another bleak collection of houses surviving on human grit and determination alone. We find ourselves stuck here for 36 hours by a snowstorm that was sweeping west. Once again, we were welcomed by a family to spend the night in their home. Our host was around our age and amazingly fluent in English. He helped us restock fuel for the stove, food, and even helped with our bicycle repairs. Looking out at the storm that day, we could never have imagined that the next day we would reach Murgab by lunchtime. 103 kilometres, with our average speed reaching more than 25 kilometres per hour. It was our only full day with the wind behind us.
Salam. Selamat. Salam.
Deuxième col à plus de 4000. On doit être vers 4200 mètres. Il neigeote. Mais on a chaud. On pédale, on pédale. Ça caille les pieds. Mais heureusement, on a mis les gants de ski, ça va.
On nous avait prévenu de prendre beaucoup d'eau. À chaque ruisseau que l'on voyait, on faisait le plein. Finalement, avec la fonte des neiges, ce n'a pas été nécessaire. On a juste porté quelques kilos pour rien.
8 km en moyenne.
Éclair continue sans s'arrêter. Elle fonce, elle fonce. Première nuit à plus de 4000, on est à 4250 mètres. On a eu du vent de face, il fait super froid dehors. On mange dans la tente et on est arrivé à se faire des pizzas avec du pain, du riz, de la sauce tomate, des tomates et des poivrons.
It's super! Anton's taking just a little break to breathe in between his pizza, and he has pizza all over his face. So, Anton, we've reached the top of our highest pass on the Pamir highway. How does it feel?
C'est du chemin, et c'est bon.
Possibly even more than the headwind, the broken dirt roads sapped our energy and lowered our morale. Harsh winters reduced once bumpy surfaces to unrideable corrugated tracks. The difference between cycling 60 kilometres of that or 60 kilometres of tarmac was incomparable. Even the briefest section of paved road was enough to lift our spirits.
C'est parti pour 25 km tout droit jusqu'à Karakoram. On vient de prendre notre dernier virage. Jusqu'à présent, on avait le vent de face. Et là, il a l'air d'être plutôt dans le dos, donc c'est magique. Oh là là, le paradis.
Pendant ces derniers kilomètres avant d'arriver au lac Karakoram, j'avais l'esprit rêveur en regardant ces montagnes. Et si un jour on revenait ici l'hiver, pour skier ou simplement voir le lac gelé? 1 heure plus tard, on voit le lac pour la première fois. Il est gelé, mon souhait s'est réalisé. Ce matin-là, on décide de ne pas partir, de ne pas prendre la route comme tous les jours. On se sent bien ici. On veut prendre le temps de se reposer, de contempler, de respirer. On a déjà l'impression d'avoir changé de pays. La culture kirghize est très forte ici. Les yaks ont remplacé les vaches. On voit déjà le Kirghizistan, avec la face sud du pic Lénine, qui domine le lac. Karakoram, à 3900 mètres d'altitude, est l'unique village au bord du plus grand lac du pays.
So we've just climbed our first pass of the day at nearly 4,300 meters. We've climbed up from Lac Karakoram, which you can see behind us, and now we are going to descend all the way back down to where we came from in the other direction, and then climb up to the same altitude for our pass going to Kyrgyzstan.
It was our last day cycling in Tajikistan after 22 days. We followed an unofficial reclaimed Chinese border through a desertic valley.
Quand les œufs que t'as achetés ce matin ont explosé en cours de route dans le sachet plastique, alors tu fais du jus d'œuf.
Our initial progress slowed as the tarmac changed abruptly into almost unrideable sandy roads. We would be sad to leave beautiful and hospitable Tajikistan behind, but the prospect of tarmac roads across the border overpowered any desire to linger.
J'aurais jamais imaginé une frontière comme ça, mais comme partout au Tadjikistan, les gens sont généreux et les militaires nous ont offert un thé et du chocolat. Quelle belle dernière image de ce pays si pauvre mais si chaleureux.
Maybe it's here. A drug control agency. There's the president of the Republic of Tajikistan. Oh le bordel. Salam. Hello. Where are you? Princess.
Ça y est, un dernier contrôle, un dernier tampon, et nous voilà sortis officiellement du pays. Maintenant, on rentre dans un no man's land de 20 km qui nous sépare du Kirghizistan.
No man's land. 20 kilometres of mountains and rivers, unclaimed and unwanted by man. The playground of marmots and other animals, unhindered by human boundaries.
Et nous voilà à la frontière du Tadjikistan et du Kirghizistan. Claire va passer le col en tête et bascule dans 3, 2, 1. Attention, top! Kyrgyzstan! Woohoo!
We just arrived, first few meters in Kyrgyzstan, where everybody told us it was summer. And it's so cold, we need to put on our ski gloves. We've got our big down jackets, so thanks Helty, you're keeping us alive. And now we are going to descend on this muddy road, so it's gonna be cold.
After a night spent camping out in no man's land, we finally drew up to the Kyrgyz border. Already more official and organised looking than its Tajik neighbour, we were also pleased to see that the rumour of better roads was not unfounded.
Pendant 2 jours, la pluie ne s'arrêtait pas de tomber. On s'est reposé dans l'auberge du village frontalier de Saritash. Pour la première fois depuis presque un mois, on avait une bonne connexion Wi-Fi. En regardant la météo qu'ils annonçaient pour les 2 prochaines semaines, on décide de ne pas aller à Hoche, ni au camp de base du pic Lénine. Le lendemain, ils prévoient une courte fenêtre météo. On met le cap à l'ouest pour rejoindre la frontière chinoise.
It wasn't the window of good weather we had hoped for. Dark clouds were building behind us and moving closer. We battled to move forward as fast as we could to avoid them, but there was an unexpected pass in the way.
Moi j'ai peur, je pense pas qu'ils ont peur. Salam!
The road climbed up, and as the altitude got more difficult, the temperature continued to drop, and the unrelenting headwind blew snow and hail into our already frozen faces. I began to cough with the cold air. My breathing became increasingly difficult. We had no idea how long it would take us to reach Irkistan, and I was so cold. I felt the panic beginning to set in. I began to question everything. Why were we here? What was the point? Why would we choose to suffer like this when we could have stayed at home in our comfortable lives in Europe? That was definitely the lowest point of the trip for me.
Salam. She is really cold. Can she sit here and the bike?
Bref, vous connaissez déjà l'histoire. Pas besoin de revoir mes talents en russe.
We'd passed the summit, but the worst wasn't over. The snowstorm had turned to rain, but with the speed of the descent, I just couldn't get warm. I was cold, I was panicking, and I didn't know what to do. Antoine pulled up to a military checkpoint, and the soldiers inside were vigorously shaking their heads until they saw the state I was in, when they quickly ushered us inside for a warm cup of tea and a seat by the fire. I don't know if they know how much they helped me that day with that simple act of kindness.
Voici, veut dire.
En arrivant à Irkeshtam, où se trouve le poste de frontière entre le Kirghizistan et la Chine, il y avait une grande file de camions qui attendait l'ouverture de la frontière. C'est un petit village aux airs de bidonville, sali par le transport de charbon qui colore tout en noir.
Salam.
Здравствуй.
Sorry?
Откуда?
Francia.
Франция.
Shetlandia.
Шотландия.
Ah, okay. Yeah, sleep. And tomorrow, China.
Понедельник açılır.
That. We need to dry it. Do you have something to dry? Yeah, but
Людей. Русский понимаем. Ты не понимаешь, да?
no.
English.
Yeah. Friends, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Не хотите? What is your name?
My name is Antoine.
What?
Antoine.
My name is Claire.
Clara.
With the border closed all weekend, we had to resign ourselves to 2 more days in this lonely village. Even discounting the bland cuisine, it was a difficult place to stay. Its air of sadness and neglect seemed to permeate everything. We spent the day in the house of the border guards who had put us up the night before. Ramadan was drawing to a close and tensions were running high. We kept a low profile.
Bon Claire, aujourd'hui on passe en Chine.
Yeah, last day in Kyrgyzstan today, and it's the first day that it's been sunny after nearly a week, and despite everyone telling us it was going to be really nice here. We're having a bit of a pauper's breakfast. We don't have very much money left, so we've got some tea, some coffee, some kind of fried thing, and we're supplementing it with chocolate biscuits that we already had. But yeah, no, we're really looking forward to moving on, to going to China, and we'll see what the day brings.
Au passage légendaire de la frontière chinoise, on a eu le droit à une fouille complète. Elle s'en est suivie de 150 km de taxi obligatoire pour arriver au réel poste de frontière. Après que notre passeport a été consulté une centaine de fois, nous pensions être enfin libres. Mais les contrôles continuent plusieurs fois par jour, à divers endroits, comme à la sortie du poste de frontière et à l'entrée de notre premier restaurant. Ce premier repas fut incroyable. Après un mois, on retrouvait des saveurs presque oubliées. Les militaires ne voulaient pas nous laisser sortir de cet hôtel-restaurant, mais sans argent et sans accès aux ATM, on fut obligé de pédaler 100 km sur des autoroutes désertes, aux nombreux checkpoints qui nous ralentissaient énormément. On arriva à 23h dans la grande ville de Kashgar.
Kashgar. After the solitude and hardship of life in the mountains, this old Silk Road trading post was an assault on the senses. We'd expected just another dusty traveller's town, and instead we were met with a bustling modern Chinese city of 4 million inhabitants. We were overwhelmed. I wanted to stock up on so many things for the next part of the journey, but I didn't know where to start. This sudden return to civilization was a shock to our systems, but the joy was intense. It felt like a holiday from the rest of the trip. I was reluctant to leave. I was reluctant to leave this comfort, but leave we must. After 2 days of eating and sleeping well, we felt strong for our first day cycling on the Karakoram Highway, or the Chinese National Highway 314, as it's less poetically known in China.
Deuxième jour de vélo en Chine, qu'est-ce qu'on mange bien?
Crazy to think we were in Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan for a month where we ate the same thing every day. Now we're in China where we can't decide what to eat, where to eat. We're a bit overwhelmed, but happy.
Ici, la seule façon de voyager librement et sans guide, c'est à vélo. On doit faire 300 km où le camping est interdit, il n'y a pas d'hôtel et où les habitants n'ont pas le droit de nous accueillir. On a donc été obligé de dormir sous la route pour la première nuit, mais on a réussi à trouver un endroit caché pour camper la deuxième nuit.
First tunnel of the trip!
Woohoo! Yeah, we're a little bit nervous. Almost 3 kilometers of a tunnel under the mountains. We're hoping it's nice and wide and that people see us when we go through. But yeah, it's been a good day so far. The mountains are beautiful. We haven't had any breakfast.
Bulankul and Karakol lakes, sporting the same name as their Tajik cousins, are the only tourist attractions in our path. Gaudy tourist infrastructure surrounds them, standing out in comparison to the bleakness of the rest of the road. Huge, pristine highway winds through empty landscapes. Very few cars have the authority to drive here, and many of the infrequent settlements are hidden behind high fences. In spite of the majesty of the high mountains and imposing glaciers, we have no desire to linger here.
What's happened? What's happened?
So it's a sad day. I was just cleaning our pot this morning to make some breakfast and we burnt a huge big hole in it. The problem is when we were in Tajikistan, you can't buy the 95 unleaded petrol that we're supposed to use, so we've been using some 92 or something like that, and it doesn't burn very well. And the flames were huge last night. We couldn't get them to go down and we didn't notice in the dark, but it's melted our pot, so no more cooking until we can buy a new one, and no breakfast this morning. We're having to make do with some dried rose hips, we think. Not so bad.
On école à plus de 4000 en Chine. Il là-bas au fond. On espère, on a une grande descente, 70 km. On espère dormir dans une grande ville ce soir, bien manger. Ah ouais, ok. Attends, attends.
Thanks to the strict Chinese regulations, it was another enforced bus journey across the border. We would still be passing the world's highest international border, but not on two wheels as we'd hoped.
We just made it to Pakistan. We just crossed the border at the highest ATM in the world that we're not allowed to use, so we don't have any money, but we're so happy to be here with the mountains. The people are so friendly.
Ok, now cheese. Et maintenant on roule à gauche.
On ne savait pas où serait le poste de frontière, alors on espérait au moins pouvoir descendre le col à vélo. Mais non. Le poste de frontière se trouve à 2 heures d'ici, 2000 mètres plus bas, dans le premier village de la vallée. On est arrivé au Pakistan sans plan. On s'était dit qu'on verrait une fois sur place. Les locaux nous ont conseillé d'aller dans la vallée de Chapursan. Cette vallée mène à l'Afghanistan. Elle vient juste d'être réouverte aux touristes après 3 ans de fermeture et la construction d'une base militaire. On a l'adresse d'une guest house dans le dernier village de cette vallée, à Zunkun. On ne le savait pas encore, mais nous allions séjourner chez la légende du trekking dans le nord du Pakistan, Alamjan. C'est lui qui va nous accueillir et nous faire découvrir ce petit paradis aux grandes montagnes sans nom, vierge de toute trace humaine jusqu'à ce jour, jamais escaladé.
Hello. How are you? Good, and you? How are you?
I'm fine.
Cool. Hello. Good. And you? How are you? Zunkun.
झलक जो पाले इनकी झलक जो पाले इनकी पाले दुनिया सारी तेरी अखियाँ 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 में वारी वारी जाऊँ अखियाँ तेरी अखियाँ तेरी अखियाँ तेरी अखियाँ दीन धर्म सब बसे हैं इनमें गीता कुरान दीन सब बसे हैं इनमें इनमें है गीता कुरान दीन धर्म सब बसे हैं इनमें इनमें गीता कुरान तेरी रहमत की एक नजर पे तेरी रहमत की एक नजर पे बसा है मेरा जहां तेरी अखियां तेरी अखियां तेरी अखियां तेरी अखियां तेरी अखियां तेरी अखियां तेरी अखियां
Finally, the moment we'd been waiting for had arrived. Equipped with our cheap made-in-China rucksacks and shoes, the only thing to be found in the small border town of Sost, we were ready to realise our dream of trekking among the high mountains of Pakistan. We would be following faint trails amongst the red Sekar rock, which Alamjan and our guide Sarwar had been walking since childhood. The lush green meadows where we would camp serve as fertile grazing in the summer months, and entire families set off with their animals to these high pastures each year. We would follow the lateral moraine of the Yishkut Glacier for 2 days before finally emerging at Pamir. This green meadow, situated at 4,048 metres, doubles as a base camp for the 7,000 metre giants which dominate the view.
We are eating chapati with dal this evening. It's good. How is it?
It's France versus Pakistan, the first person to touch the lake. Woo!
Party, okay, party. Party. Merci.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. All the best. Thank you.
I'd been nervous setting off for Chaperson Valley. I'd heard so many negative things before arriving in Pakistan, and I wasn't sure how safe we would be in this remote mountain valley. In the end, I couldn't have felt safer or more welcome, and this trip changed my entire opinion regarding Pakistan and its people. This was the saddest part of our trip. After a few days spent exploring Pasu, including the death-defying suspension bridges still used by locals to transport animals and other wares to market, disaster struck. On arrival at Atabad Lake, Antoine couldn't resist flying the drone to get some footage of its incredible blue waters. The wind was strong, however, and suddenly the drone lost signal completely. Distraught at the thought of losing all our footage, which we'd been unable to back up since the start of the trip, he immediately set off up the treacherous landslide towards a cliff face where it had crashed. The ground was friable, constantly collapsing underfoot, and when a huge rock gave way underneath him, Antoine fell several metres, head first down the mountain. Watching from below, I was certain he was dead. Panicked, and not knowing what else to do, I started climbing up towards him, before I eventually saw him making his way down, badly cut and bruised, but without serious injury. Given how far he had fallen, it was a miracle he hadn't broken anything. Antoine too had thought he was about to die, and we passed the evening in a state of shock, our relief at Antoine's lucky escape mingling with sadness at losing all of the memories contained in our drone. We returned together the next day, having found the GPS coordinates of the crash and plotted them on a map. However, the final section of climbing was too difficult without a rope. We returned a third and final time with the help of another traveller in their drone, but there was no sign. Just as we had given up all hope, we met Adil. A local digital nomad and skilled climber, Adil returned with a local guide, and after a full day's effort and his own near-death experience, he managed to locate and recover the remains of our drone. We will forever be indebted to him for this, even if we would never recover the images due to a short-circuited SD card. We were so saddened by the loss of the drone and all the images and memories it contained. Having lost so much time and energy searching for it, we missed out on many experiences along the Hunza Valley. The road itself was spectacular though, with huge mountains such as Rakaposhi visible from the highway. From our height on the Karakoram highway, Rakaposhi's summit stood 5,988 metres above us, reputed to be the biggest altitude difference in the world. Our cheap Chinese shoes had failed us already, but a quick visit to a traditional shoemaker and they were ready to hike again.
On vient de marcher 2000 mètres de dénivelé depuis la vallée de Nagar pour arriver au camp de base du Rakaposhi, mais les sommets paraissent toujours aussi loin. On entend les glaciers craquer, quelle force de la nature! La vue sur les glaciers de plusieurs kilomètres est impressionnante. On est entouré de sommets de plus de 7000 mètres. Ces montagnes sont gigantesques. Et comme ils disent ici, welcome to the Karakoram. Je crois que le vent de face continue à nous suivre, et celui-là était particulièrement fort. On a fait une pause d'1 heure, mais rien n'a changé. On a donc repris la route en direction de Gilgit.
and Gilgit were unsafe for solo bicycle travel. We'd have needed complex arrangements of various police escorts, and it didn't seem worth the risk. We were thus obligated to take the long and bumpy bus journey on the oldest, cheapest bus available, so that we could load the bikes on the roof.
En arrivant à Islamabad, la chaleur est pesante. Il fait déjà plus de 30 degrés au lever du jour. C'est la première fois du voyage qu'on a aussi chaud. Les tuk-tuk réveillent la ville à coups de klaxon. Ça nous rappelle l'Inde.
Jhelum, where we would leave our bikes with the family of my good friend Wahid. It was really starting to feel like the end of the adventure, but we were comforted by the knowledge that there would be another chapter. Emotional, as the reality of all we had achieved mingled with the knowledge that it would all soon be over. We tried to focus instead on the rhythmic jostling of the train and the varied countryside rushing past. After all, there was still a little more adventure to be had.
Bicycle?
हमारी साइकिल
Alaudina God 46 calling. और काम अनलोड है कि भाई तो बुला बुला के ना तो तैयार बोल रहे हैं नहीं बुला रहे कोई बंदा ठहर ठहर फसिया ने कटन दिया जो थले ठलो मैं अपना थले ठलो बंद करो दरवाजा
Thank you. Heureusement qu'ils nous ont bien aidés, hein.
Eh oui, heureusement qu'ils nous ont bien aidés, comme tous ceux qu'on a rencontrés pendant cette aventure. Je pense que sans leur aide, nous n'y serions pas arrivés.
And yes, we're thankful to all those that helped us, all those many, many people throughout our trip, for I'm sure that without their help, we would never have succeeded.
Merci.
Thank you.
Rahmat.
谢谢.
Shukriya.
Antoine. Claire. Surat.
so, so ya la so, so ya la so.